Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to read an article I originally wrote for my LinkedIn page titled, The Pressure Cooker of Cumulative Fatigue. There's a kind of fatigue in professional flying that you don't feel building until it's already too late. It doesn't show up first as tired eyes or heavy yawns. It shows up as layers of responsibility, irregular schedules, early mornings, late nights, last-minute trips, and long stretches without recovery. None of these alone seem dangerous, but together, stacked quietly, day after day, they create pressure. When I first upgraded to King Air Captain, I didn't understand this. Flight instructing had been tiring, yes, but it was a straightforward kind of tired. It didn't carry the responsibility of passengers, weather decisions, IFR launches at dawn, or 12 consecutive days of being on. Captaincy introduced me to a new flavor of fatigue entirely. Cumulative fatigue, the kind that doesn't feel urgent until the lid is already rattling. And like many new captains, I kept quiet. I didn't want to look weak. I didn't want to be high maintenance. I wanted to show I could handle the load. So I tightened the lid, and the pressure rose. Eventually it came out in the form of an emotionally fueled phone call to my chief pilot, something I wish I had handled with more composure. But cumulative fatigue rarely gives you the luxury of perfect timing. It vents when it has nowhere left to go. To his credit, my chief pilot responded with understanding rather than frustration. He didn't question my capability. He didn't instruct me to toughen up. He simply lightened my schedule for the next rotation. It was a small gesture, but it gave me space to recover, and it kept a solvable problem from becoming something larger. Years later, I watched the same pattern unfold from the leadership side. A pilot I supervised had logged a long stretch of duty days, nothing extraordinary on paper, but enough to quietly elevate the pressure. When we finally had the chance to talk, I recognized the signs immediately. The same tightness, the same forced calm, the same emotional strain I'd once ignored in myself. Just like my chief pilot did for me, we eased the load. A few extra days off, a little margin, a chance to reset. He came back composed, professional, and steady. There's a lesson in there. New captains feel the pressure more sharply, and that's normal. Responsibility is heavy the first time you shoulder it. The same workload that overwhelms a newly upgraded captain may be completely manageable a year later. Not because the schedule changed, but because they changed. In other words, the goal is not to remove pressure from new captains. The goal is to let them acclimate to it gradually without being thrown into the deep end. Boil the frogs slowly, so to speak. Let them grow into the role. If we treat new captains as if they should instantly bear the same load as seasoned ones, we set them up for unnecessary strain and sometimes burnout. For new captains, here's what matters most. Expect your first cumulative fatigue event. It's not a sign of weakness. It's part of the learning curve. Speak up before the emotional threshold. Early communication prevents the boil over none of us want. Give yourself grace as you grow. What feels overwhelming today may feel normal a year from now. For leaders, the responsibility is just as real. Watch schedules closely, especially for new upgrades. The same rotation impacts pilots differently depending on experience. Normalize early fatigue calls. Pilots should never fear being honest. Provide small pressure releases before they become big problems. A single lightened rotation often prevents a long-term retention issue. Remember that growth takes time. A pilot who seems strained under early captaincy may become one of your strongest performers once the role settles into their bones. Cumulative fatigue is not dramatic. It's subtle. It rarely announces itself. It builds quietly until it suddenly doesn't. But with awareness, communication, and leadership that understands the human factors behind the cockpit door, the pressure cooker doesn't have to explode. Pilots can grow into their responsibility safely, steadily, and with longevity. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, feel free to like and subscribe and click the bell to be notified of future videos. Until next time, fly safe. There's a kind of fatigue in... Goodness, now I'm on the downhill spiral. Okay. Take a million.